And I am not a front-end developer. I also don't consider myself to be a full-stack developer. Until they put Bash into the browser, I won't be a full-stack developer. I am firmly server-side, although I have sort of dabbled in UI code in that kind of, oh god, a developer's written this type way. My design skills are rubbish. So what am I doing at a web design meetup? Because my design skills, on a scale of 1 to 10, live over here, minus infinity somewhere. If I'm on your team and you're playing Pictionary, you have lost. I don't care how good you people are at design, you've lost. I'm going to bring the whole team down. I do, however, have other credentials that allow me to come and sort of speak somewhat knowledgeably today. Because, hi, I'm a user. You may recognize me from such stories such as a user, I'd like to receive a marketing email every week so that I may see what special offers there are. True story. And I may have upset a few people when I changed that to red as a marketing department. I would like to mercilessly spam our users so that I may make more conversions and hit my KPIs. It turns out that as a user, I'm invoked for quite a few things, most of which I really, really don't care about. And when it comes to the things that I do care about, what we get is, as a developer, I don't want to implement this because it's hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on a little journey with a hypothetical website. Apologies, I was expecting a bigger screen, so this may be a bit far away. But we're going to see what we can see as a user and what we can learn. So just in case this is a little bit too hard to read, I'll zoom in a bit. We're on every damn page on the internet these days. We've got the 3 W's after the HTTPS, the 3 W's standing for why, and then, oh dear God, why. And what we get is this. Now this is a simple, generic mock-up. We don't want to pick on anyone specific here, but it is every damn page on the internet these days. And the first thing we have to point out is we are not an email client. And we're not a chat client, and we're not monitoring a build pipeline. So there's absolutely no reason to have this thing up here, which is asking me, would I like browser notifications? No, please stop. And if someone is trying to force you to put these things on the website, then have a little meeting with them. And when you do some prep. I've done my prep here. You take a piece of paper and say, I have reservations about this on the piece of paper. And when they're talking to you, midway through, if they're insisting that the pop-up for notification comes up, walk up to them and say, I have reservations about this. Please click to continue. And keep doing that until they admit that, no, you do not want stupid pop-ups on your website saying, would you like notifications? So we've got rid of that monstrosity. This is good. Please don't replace it with one asking about location as well, because we really don't care about location either. Same rules apply, you don't need it. What's next? Ah, yes, GDPR and cookies. Do you really need all of these cookies and tracking scripts? I mean, really, do you need them? I mean, all of them. Can you even tell me what these things are doing? Incidentally, I grabbed this screenshot from this page, find out how many cookies internet sites saved to your system, which I just felt was deeply ironic. Have you seen what they're doing to your load times? They're doing some really quite nasty things there. Have you seen what it does if you disable JavaScript on your website? Now, interestingly, on this website, it stops the cookie pop-up from even appearing and stops any ads from actually showing. So turning JavaScript off for this website makes my experience better. But it can make your life hell, because if I've turned JavaScript off, then your code's not running and not working. And also a bug in any one of those third-party clients, or those third-party libraries, can actually cause your code to come to a crashing halt. And this could be a problem. And you're effectively just blindly putting stuff from third parties are going, hey, include this, and cool things may or may not happen. But trust us, because we're on the internet. And yes, this may not feel like a huge amount of code versus what you've done with Create React app, but you're still pulling in unknown stuff. This is the EDP website. It's glorious. I love the EDP website. Yes. Now, I've had to wait quite a while for this to load and infill all the adverts and everything. But that's okay, because I can ignore them all. I can click up in the top when you've got Reader View. And I have literally, from that screenshot, clicked Reader View. The crap goes away, the cookie consent rubbish has gone away, and oh, I've tossed most of your CSS out the window as well. Now I just have a lovely clean page to read. But that's not the story here. The story is, as a user, I want a usable web experience so that I don't have to resort to read a view. Now, there's no getting away from this bad boy. It's there, it is what it is. It highlights an underlying problem, but I'm just going to go ahead and click on whatever. Wait a minute, hang on. There's still this thing down at the bottom. Did someone forget to take the old cookie consent stuff out? Now, despite me being through a massive modal pop-up, I've seen quite a few websites that also have this down the bottom, so I've now got to click again with, whatever, cookies. It's just madness. And now that we've closed all of that, I am finally through to your website, and I can now, oh, Jesus, sign up to the newsletter. How well does this work? What is the conversion rate? What are you actually getting out of this other than annoying your users? And I mean, be honest about this. Go to your marketing people and say, does this do sales, or does it just turn people off? I'm not subscribing to your newsletter, so that's being dismissed as well. So anyway, we are now ready to go and do whatever it is that we want to, oh, for fuck's sake, take our survey. I haven't even used your website yet, and you are asking me to take a survey, and I have occasionally taken the surveys at this point because I've then turned around and gone, no, please let me use your website first. Don't keep spamming me with God knows what. Would your time not be better spent actually making your website usable rather than going, hey, why isn't our website usable? Right, are we done? Are we good? Because all I want to do is to click on this poxy little link at the top that says login. Actually, I don't want to click it. My boss is making me click it because I know that this hides a world of pain, but we're going to have to get over this. So I've not been before. I'm going to have to click on the register link, and we come here where we're going to create an account. Again, it's a bit small, so we'll zoom in a bit. This is not going to end well. I can feel it. Right, by show of hands, who would feel comfortable coding a form that asks whether you are black or white with radio buttons? No one would feel comfortable coding that up. Excellent. How about this? Male or female? Who would feel comfortable putting that into a... No one? Okay, cool.
Depends who's asking.
We're going to go for an e-commerce website here. Just going to go for a general selling stuff on the internet. And actually, even if this were a medical website doing a medical study, where we're thinking about strict biological definitions of male and female, and we're not even going into the sort of the gender dimorphism that happens, we're still falling foul of someone who is intersex, because it is entirely possible for people to be born intersex. We can make things more woolly. Would anyone be comfortable putting this onto an e-commerce website where we're asking about ethnicity and are you black or Afro-Caribbean and so on and so forth? So this is bad. We wouldn't do this. This is probably bad. This has very limited applications and is deeply questionable. So what makes us think that this is actually okay? So we'll park gender for the moment and we'll take a quick look at names. Culturally, we used to think about names in a very basic form where we have a title, we have a forename, and we have a surname. Sometimes we call that first name and last name, but it's the same sort of thing. So if we ask for a title, a forename, and a surname, we're all good, right? Wrong. Madonna is a perfectly valid name. No title, single name. And does that go in the forename or the surname? I don't know. This is a perfectly valid name that does not even fall in the Unicode table. Thank you, Prince. The artist formerly known as Prince does not fit nicely into your little triptych of boxes. And if we were to go even further back than that, Prince was just a single word. Again, perfectly valid name. And it's not just single word names that cause problems. Longer names can cause problems. So Daenerys Stormborn of the House of Targaryen, first of her name, the Unburnt, the Queen of the Andals and First of Men, Khaleesi of the Great Sea, Breaker of Chains, and Mother of Dragons. That's not fitting in your little boxes. And if you prefer more realistic and real-world examples, Liz has an equally large title. The Princess Consuela Banana Hammock, this one from Phoebe and Friends. Pretty sure that the surname here would be Banana Hammock. but we're not double-barreled, and I'm not even sure if your text box is going to allow me to put spaces in. And there's another problem, because princess isn't in our list of drop-down titles. But that's okay, because we've got this almighty kludge where I can select other and put in my title, which just feels bad. So why are we doing this? Personalization? Here's a nuts idea. If you want to personalize your website, why not just ask me how I would like to be addressed? Legally, my name is this jumbled mess of characters, but I would prefer you to address me as Dom. If it's formal, then perhaps Mr. Davis, with the single exception being HMRC, who I will then have to insist on any written correspondence having your worship whose eyeballs are not worthy of sullying with this text at the top of every single communication. So look, my form's got simpler. I just have a name, and it's easier for me to input the data, and it's easier for you to process and validate this data. So if it's not personalization, because we would have done it already, what else is it? You're not recording this information for delivery purposes, because I generally get to enter in a delivery set of details when I get there. And if you're forcing me through the same rubbish on delivery, then we've got even less of an excuse for doing this. The only other reason I can think of is marketing. And at that point, we're back here. So let's play Guess the Gender. Male or female? Trick question, non-binary. And we can keep playing this game for a whole bunch of different titles. Anyone seen this before? Mux. Mux is a gender-neutral title, and it can be male, female, non-binary, gender fluid, or indeed anything that the user feels like at the given moment in time. So why are we doing this? It's telling us absolutely nothing. In fact, there is only one place where we really, really care about names. Payment. And there is a text box that just says, enter in the name as found on the card. There is no standard. I'm pretty sure that every single card I have has my name rendered differently. So no name, text box, great. And I don't even have to go on about the fact that this is our Western bubble, and if you go outside of the Western bubble, that you have other issues that go on with names and the fact that surnames and forenames get muddled around. So we can move on. We can move on to the next thing. Phone number. Probably won't be on most forms, but it annoys me enough that I feel I have to include it in this. This is an invalid phone number. Why? Because it has spaces in it. Now, you're going to struggle if someone wants to put in an extension or some kind of extra detail. But let's, for sake of argument, assume it's going to be a mobile number with no country code, and we're not even using the special characters that come on the keypad. We're just using numbers. What's wrong with stripping out the spaces for me? I mean, this is the code that does it. It's a single line of code, and I can provide it in any language that you want. And this is effectively all I'm going to be doing as a user. I'm going to go through and manually delete the spaces so the number will go through. Why don't you just do that for me and stop annoying me? Right, fun one now. Password. Randall Munro has my back here with a wonderful explainer on what's wrong with passwords these days. So we take an uncommon, non-gibberish word of troubadour, we capitalize the first word, the first letter of the word, make some common letter substitutions, and we slam some rubbish on the end. And what we get is about 28 bits of entropy, and he's working on the premise of about 1,000 guesses a second with a remote attack, and he's saying it's going to take about 3 days to break that password. And this password's actually quite hard to remember. We're certainly not remembering lots of passwords of this format, so we're probably just going to reuse the same passwords, which is a problem. How about 4 random common words? This is roughly 44 bits of entropy, and it's going to take half a millennia to crack using the same criteria. Oh, and it's easy to remember as well. So the text on the bottom of this, through 20 years of effort, we successfully trained everyone to use passwords that are hard for humans to remember and easy for computers to guess. And the alt text of the comic is, to anyone who understands information theory and security, it is an infuriating argument with someone who does not, possibly involving mixed case. I sincerely apologize. And it's got a good point. Let's chuck a relatively unassuming password at a real website. Oh dear God. So password contains an unsupported character. What even is an unsupported character? I mean, is this An unsupported character? I don't know. Here's another example, again, from a real website. Here I've gone for the correct horse battery staple approach, and it's come back with 2 different errors, one of which is wrong because I know both the passwords are the same. I cut and pasted them into that field. There is so much wrong with these error messages, I don't even know where to start, but let's deal with the lack of uppercase letters and work with the smallest possible password length that they're going to deal with, because the numbers are easier. So we've got 26 possible characters if we've got lowercase, and there are 8 positions they can be in. So naively, that comes to 2 times 10 to the 11 combinations. If you force a mix, we now have 26 characters either from upper or lowercase, and then 7 characters coming from the combined upper and lowercase space, which is going on for 3 times 10 to the 13. And it seems at first that we've made the search space larger, because 2.7 times 10 to the 13 is bigger than 2.1 times 10 to the 11. Great! Except this isn't actually the true case. We've limited the space, because if we're allowing mixed case in our passwords, the search space is actually 52 to the 8, which is 5 times 3 times 10 to the 13. And that is substantially bigger than our previous one, so we have halved our search space. Now, a standard keyboard can produce 96 characters, and if you're doing 8 characters as password, your search space is this very large number. Force me to use lowercase and an uppercase and a numeric and a special character, and God forbid, stop me from using space for some reason that I just cannot fathom, and it becomes this. So yeah, 1 lowercase, 1 uppercase, 1 number, subtract all that from what's left, and then anything for the last 4. 1.8 times 10 to the 13. That's a smaller search space than when I was just using upper and lowercase. If you want to make passwords harder to crack, more characters every single time. Now, 7.2 times 10 to the 15 may seem like an insanely huge number until you consider that a single rig built in 2015 could smash through this in under a month if they were MD5 hashed. And that's the entire space brute forced. So any password that's been encrypted using MD5, I can decrypt straight away. And we can be far, far cleverer about attacking this search space rather than just brute forcing it. Now, if we were sensible in using Bcrypt, then it takes a lot longer, nearly 200 millennia, which sounds like we've now got a safe password. Except you've forced a bunch of restrictions on me by saying that I've got to have a mixed case, and I've got to have a number, and I've got to have a special character, and that figure has just fallen to 500 years. And that's on commodity hardware from 4 years ago. GPU and compute is cheap, and I can order it online on Amazon these days and just fire up a rig for an hour, and even Bcrypt isn't going to help you against that. So if we double the character set, we go from here to here. Seems like a big jump. If we double the password length, we have just insane orders of magnitude more. And we don't need the idiotic rules to make your password strong. So let's put this into context with the fastest reported hashing setup that I could find. So these are people who have set up rigs to brute force passwords and also use very, very clever algorithms to go through. So your 8 character lowercase password will fall to this rig in 1.4 seconds if you're using MD5. That is like having no password at all. If you're using mixed upper and lowercase, 6 minutes. If you're using Bcrypt, if you're using a double length password, you're now looking at 500,000 years. Seems like it's okay. If you've gone with Bcrypt, things would be slightly better. 3 years for your weak password, 765 years for your slightly stronger password, and an insane number that I'm not even going to try and pronounce.
Sorry, what's Bcrypt?
Bcrypt is a command that you should be running against your passwords. You take your password, you give it to Bcrypt, it gives you an output. I'll show you an example in a bit. Lots of very clever people have put it together so that you don't have to worry about it. Literally just Bcrypt.
Still storing this. So
It's still storing it.
Your password,
Yes.
you then put that into the website, and the website's storing that.
Yes, so you Bcrypt the password, and you store the Bcrypted version, and then when you want to log in, person types in their password, you bcrypt that version, you compare the two bcrypted versions, and if they match, it's good. And all the bcrypt libraries will have
It's just a better hashing.
it's a much better hashing algorithm, and it's got a workload function as well. So as compute gets better, you can increase the workload and make it slower. So every single library will have a generate password and check password, and you literally go, here is my password, here's the thing I want to store, and here is my password versus what it was stored before.
That's
Do
the
them.
server story.
Yes,
So you're talking about hacking the server, not hacking somebody's website.
but you can do remote attacks. Yeah, so this is brute force
It's
attacks.
still going to be the same password thing, isn't it? If you put it into a website, and the website's going to...
So yeah, the website sends the plain text password over HTTPS.
Yeah.
But this is saying if someone gets hold of your passwords, if they're not hashed properly,
Download your password list.
yes, if you've got into the database and pulled down the passwords, I could,
Get into the database and pull down the password.
yes,
So they've got to hack the database. So
yes, that's not always that hard.
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot. And also, Randall's examples for 3 years for the shorter password was based on 1,000 requests to your website. So just trying again and again and again and again. So with weak passwords, you can get in quite quickly, especially if they're not nicely encrypted. Now the passwords I tend to use look like this, and in fact this is something I asked my password manager to generate for me. My passwords are almost always over 30 characters long. This is 31 characters if you ignore the dashes. And yes, they're all based off dictionary words, and yes, they're all lowercase, and yes, it's always a dash that separates them. But it's been done by a password manager who's been written by people who know what they're talking about. And if you're talking about entropy, like Randall was talking, this calculation is going to take over 8 million years to crack this password. And this is even if you've got hold of the password list and you're attacking it as hard as possible. And that's with the modern password cracker setup. Even if you get hold of the word list, even if you have the dictionary that the words are generated from, there's this many combinations, which is 24,000 years to permutate every single combination. And there are less things that you can do to improve the attack because it's words, not letters, and you can't deal with letter distribution and what have you. So here's the deal. You let me put whatever I want into these boxes with 2 caveats. Firstly, it's got to be 16 characters or over because anything less is just not worth it these days. And secondly, it's not allowed to be in a list of the top 100,000 passwords, and it's very hard to get very easy to get those lists. And you just compare it against those lists, and if it's not in there, it's over 16 characters, accept it as a password. You then take the password and run it through Bcrypt and store the output to the database. So this is my super awesome password, and that's what Bcrypt spits out at the end. The original text password you throw away, you don't need it. You can now compare against a re-Bcrypted version. And here's an interesting fact for you. The output from Bcrypt is always 60 characters long. It doesn't matter if it's the letter A, it doesn't matter if it's something that jumps through all the hoops that you've been asked to jump through. It doesn't matter if it's a 30+ character generated password. It doesn't even matter if it is the whole of Homer's Iliad. And I've had to change method here in order to get it in. I would like to do this with War and Peace, but I can't find a text copy of War and Peace. So PHP just has a password hash function. In it goes. So there's no reason to limit my password. If it's always going to generate a 60-character hash, I can just store that 60-character hash. So there are 2 reasons for an upper bound on password length. The first one is the amount of compute required to hash very, very large passwords. And it's not a huge amount of compute. And the second one is the HTTP post limit. So maybe a limit of a couple of thousand characters is adequate. So if it's a properly secured password, why are you putting an upper limit on there? Makes me wonder about how you're storing it and whether you're actually storing it with something that tells me something about the length of the password. Or worse still, storing it in plain text, which happens a lot these days. So we'll put that on hold and just do a little thought experiment before we close. You take 5 monkeys and you put them in a big cage and suspend some bananas from the top of this cage, and you provide the monkeys with a stepladder. but also a proximity detector, and any time a monkey goes near the bananas, the entire cage is flooded with high-pressure jets of water. Soon, the monkeys learn that the stepladder is best ignored. Now, remove one monkey and replace it with a fresh monkey who doesn't know anything about the hoses. They see the banana, and they notice the stepladder, and because they're a smart primate, they think, I'm going to go get that banana, and they imagine themselves climbing the stepladder and reaching out and grabbing the banana. As they deftly grab the stepladder, the other 4 monkeys descend on it and beat the crap out of it. Now, the reason this has happened is because the other 4 monkeys know what's going to happen. They're going to get punished. So let's stop this new monkey from doing the bad thing. So, replace another monkey and put in a new fresh one. And the scenario occurs again. This new monkey tries to grab the stepladder, and the other 4 monkeys descend on it. Even the old previous fresh monkey, because it's now learned that you should not touch the stepladder. If you touch the stepladder, bad things are going to happen. In this case, if I touch the stepladder, the other monkeys are going to beat me up. Iterate, and after some operations, you have no monkeys that have been sprayed by the high-pressure hoses. But they are all ready to punch any other monkey that touches that stepladder, because they know that you're not allowed to touch the stepladder because it's bad and bad things will happen. But none of them know why it's bad or why it's going to happen. Now, originally, some developer somewhere was working on an old Unix system from the previous century, previous millennium, in fact, which was using the old Bcrypt, which is actually a password hashing function based on the des block cipher. And in that hashing function, only the first 8 characters of the password were used, and then only the lower 7 bits of those. Subsequent characters were ignored. That's your banana. The internet is full of monkeys. So be a software artisan, not a code monkey. Care about your craft and produce code and websites that you can be proud of. Code that isn't going to cause users like me to get up and rant. Because trust me, this is just the cliff notes. I could go on for hours. But I am now going to open the floor for questions. But I will point out that questions must be phrased as haiku, using heroic couplets, with at least 1 numeric character per line. And your question cannot be the same as any previous 7 questions at other events. And if you've forgotten your question, you can click this link and I will email you a new question to you. Thank you very much. Questions?
Do you really have to have 2 password fields? So
I'm sorry, your question cannot include spaces.
the UXer in me is suggesting that perhaps we don't need to have 2 fields anymore for passwords. So
You're picking up on the password and the confirm password. Did you not see my email?
Well, no, clearly.
It's going to be easier if I do it this way. The UXer in you is not paying attention.
No.
Here we have email, and then confirm email, then really confirm email, and then are you sure, and then one more for luck. Yeah, I'm kind of lampooning all of this. And yes, the 2 passwords is kind of useful if you do not have a slick way of recovering a password, because the amount of times I've typoed a password, I mean, when this thing was having problems with its E key, not giving anything away by saying some of my passwords have E's in them, it causes issues because you don't know whether you're typing it properly. But if it's very easy to retrieve your password, I mean, Slack, these days I log into Slack so infrequently that I just go, yes, please email me the magic link that will work for...
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question then. So, when do you think passwords will actually be outlawed and essentially it will be other methods of
Not soon enough. Because my bank, when I queried with my bank, who limit me to 12 characters with my password, and I questioned this, came back with, we don't feel that the limit of 12 characters nor the case sensitivity is an issue because we have other security factors, at which point I lost my crap with them. It's just like, but you're a bank. It turns out that the case insensitivity is with them.
Even if you've got, so you've got levels of security.
Yes.
So if somebody is trying to enter through the website
Yes.
password to unlock your account, then you are going to use other things to block that. So you do things like we have 5 attempts or 7 attempts until you lock it. Then they have to go through some kind of recovery field. So it's not just, you couldn't just batter the site.
So why are you putting you've got all these security things, why are you making me jump through hoops to make my password more secure?
You should certainly put minimum.
It's an interesting
lengths.
Yeah, minimum length, that's fine. Maximum length here, and the fact that I've got to have, I've got an unsupported character, it doesn't meet the requirements because I need one lowercase, one letter, one uppercase, and a number. All of these are ridiculous hoops that you're putting your user through.
That is why you are being asked to do it. The human monkey sees the work that they're having to do to come up with those ridiculous combinations, because they're having to work hard, feels secure. If you said to them, put in 16 lowercase characters, they'd go, that's not difficult. Because you see it from the standpoint of somebody who knows what the implications of that are. The user, me, sees it in a completely different light.
So let's put it another way. My, again, aforementioned bank, I have to have this horrible mix of things. They also will not let me paste my password into my password field on my phone. So I now have to bounce between my password manager and my bank login about 4 times, because I'm quite chronically dyslexic. If you're shoulder surfing, you've now got my banking password. It's horrible, horrible user experience.
It's certainly horrible, but I'm just really specifically talking to that particular instance. So you have got a good point. Yes.
But that's only because we've educated users to say that strong passwords are...
Well, we have.
Yes.
There's no doubt. We have. No, we have, and there's a good reason for it. Because if you think about it, it's like proof of work. You're actually saying you, the human processor, do some proof of work. Something's difficult for you to do. Very easy for a machine to go, hey, this is a piece of pie for me. But the human user thinks this is difficult, and I suspect, nothing other than suspicion, that that's probably why this has persisted.
Oh yeah, there's the whole load of reasons why it has persisted. I would like it to not persist anymore, please.
From a usability standpoint, my God, it would be just wonderful if I just went,
Yep.
16 characters done, no
Well, I don't even do that. I mean, I go into my password manager and say, hey, give me a new password. And I cut and paste. And in fact, I have put a request into the people who write my password manager for an idiotic password recipe that will allow me to have the one uppercase. Because literally all I do is I go and I make the first character uppercase in my password and I put a 1 on the end of it.
And going back to that, your maths on that bit, I kind of got lost in the logic of that. Because the way I read you doing the maths is that you were saying there's 26 characters, you have 8 times 26. But then when you went to having the 50s, 2 characters, you decided to only make it the first one uppercase.
So this is if you're forcing me to have 1 uppercase or 1 lowercase. So my first choice either has to be uppercase or
It
lowercase.
doesn't have to be the first choice.
Well,
You could have them all as uppercase and 1 as lowercase.
yes.
So
So
what
what?
you're actually saying, instead of 52 to the power of 8, you're saying it's 52 to the power of 7 times 26 times 26.
So one of them is limited to either uppercase or lowercase. One of them has to be limited to uppercase or lowercase. The other 7
That
can be.
means 2 of them.
Well, no, because if you've got one that's lowercase, the other 7 can all be uppercase,
Right.
and you match the.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
disputing it. I just got confused with it.
So the maths is
I
not.
don't see a problem with it personally. I see what you're saying about the length of it, and I totally get what Roy's saying about it. I think what I do have an issue with is that you're not going to be able to. It's not one way of getting into the system, because you've obviously got way more security things than just someone's password. And if somebody is writing a system where they got it as just the text field in their database,
You would.
they won't have a job. They shouldn't have a job.
So I have recently done some work with a fairly large firm where we had to jump through things. Getting ISO 27001 certification was easier than getting through their security procedure. And then the first thing they did was email us data where we had explicitly stated we did not want the password column. And they emailed us the data in plain text with the password column, and the passwords were all in plain text for every single user in their organization.
I was curious about your password hashing mechanism that you were suggesting using. Does that have a universal sort then, or how does it?
So Bcrypt actually stores the salt in the output. There's a lot of very well-written articles on.
Salt is inside.
Yes. So it knows which salt to use. So it's a very fixed format. But I've done previous talks just on.
It's not in the output. The salt affects the output.
You can't have the salt in the output to the encryption. It's
Bcrypt
crazy, because
requires a salt.
yeah, and I was wondering where it came
Optionally
from.
requires
Optionally
a salt.
requires a salt, yes.
But the salt is not in the output.
There are characters that it uses when it's because the output will change each time. If you're bcrypting the same, if you're putting in the same password, the output actually changes each time. But if you are putting in a password and comparing it to another one, which is why you have to use the compare function, not the generate the password, regenerate it, and compare the output of the two, it uses some of the characters that are output in order to affect how it's comparing
That's
that.
not the salt. The
But
salt is a
yeah.
different thing.
So where are you keeping the salt? Do you have a different?
So you will optionally you
each
can
person?
optionally you can just have a sort of global salt.
But it's usually per server, so you would store it somewhere on the
Yeah.
server.
The systems I write, I have a sort and the generate password for each.
But you can do that as well if you wanted
Yeah,
to.
you can do that.
Yeah.
Given that you're 75% over.
I'm answering questions.
I'm sorry.
I've got engagement.
No.
We've got engaged audience.
I'm just curious on that whole point there.
So I do another talk on passwords where I break people who understand security into two groups. Those who don't understand enough about security to write their own password hashing functions, and those who know enough about security to not write their own password hashing functions. There is technically a third group of people who are clever enough to write password hashing functions, but they're a statistical anomaly, which is how I'm going to break your custom password hashing function. Yeah, Bcrypt is pretty much the industry standard these days. There are a couple of others that you might want to use instead of it, but please, God, do not use MD5.
You're not going to like me anyway, so it's different. But it's cool. Thank you.
How did you get that from? How did you get that you wouldn't like .NET from this presentation?
Well, I write in .NET.
Yeah. So what made you think Don wouldn't like .NET?
I didn't say you didn't
I thought
like
you said.
it.
I thought you said.
Well,
You wouldn't like it.
because everything is written in PHP and you want it.
Oh no, the PHP example is just because I googled and that was the quickest way to do it. I write everything in Go.
Right.
But you've also had nice things to say about .NET relatively recently.
He goes so.
It reminded me of why I hate Java. Yes. So
Everything in Go.
yes,
Oh, okay.
I love Go. Go's brilliant.
No comment. I'm just interested to know.
It's simple. I love simple. I use .NET for gaming stuff because I have to. I thought I can do this in Go, and then I realised how painful it was to map into DLLs that I went and used .NET, where it's nice and simple. Is it Tom's Go now?
It is Go. Yes. Thank you very much, Don.
You're welcome.
Yeah.